My buddy Lee Winnell and I, we've known each other for a while. We met back at film school in college, university in Australia, and we shared very similar interests, and we got along really well. And then we realized that we wanted to do the same thing, which is make a feature film. Lee really wanted to act and write. For me, my passion has always been to direct. So we collaborated, we got together, and we spent many years just making little short films between he and myself. And then eventually we decided that we wanted to be noticed for a feature, and we wanted to make a feature. However, we didn't want to make a feature or write a feature script and just to give it to someone else. We wanted to write something that we can hopefully make ourselves.
We wanted to make a film, but we quickly realised that in Australia, it's a very small film industry. It's very hard to get films made, and mostly films are funded by the government to this day. We felt like we were so outside of that. We didn't know the right people. We didn't know anybody in the film industry. It felt like a club to us. Maybe that wasn't the way it actually was, but that was our perception. And so we decided if we were going to make a film, we'd have to make it ourselves with our own money. The thing we needed, the thing we were lacking, was a great story.
And so the idea of Saw literally came about out of necessity. We wanted to make a movie with our own hard-earned cash, with our own money. And so we came up with a story about two guys trapped in one room.
I went and wrote the script, and we were intending to shoot it ourselves with our own money until my agent and manager at the time, Stacey Testro, she read it and she was like, well, don't go and make this for $5,000 and screw it up. Like, let's go and try and find some real money. Let's try and find $1 million.
And so Stacey then got us connected with an agent out in LA who had read the script and really loved it and wanted to meet up with Lee and myself.
And that's when we made the short. The short is really just one scene from the movie. It's like a demo reel.
And use that short film to showcase myself as a filmmaker and to showcase Lee as an actor.
And we did that so that when we came here to LA, we could say, hey, here's the script and here's one scene from the movie. This is what it would look like. And so it wasn't really made as a short film that we could put into festivals or anything. It was just made for this specific purpose of getting the film funded. And people just loved the short. I mean, they really liked the script, but the short just instantly communicated what the film was.
It was beautifully shot. I mean, you could already tell this beautiful vision that James had. And they borrowed the money to shoot the scene from family and friends. So I already knew how passionate they were about the film, and they just, it was just incredible to see these two young filmmakers with such a unique vision.
Greg Hoffman was our partner who's passed away, was actually taking meetings looking for some TV projects, and an agent said, you got to see something. There's something that's really cool, and they actually have a script. And they showed Greg the 7-minute tape, and he's like, whoa. So he thought it was pretty cool. He came back to Evolution, and he grabbed Mark and I and went to my office. We popped it in, the three of us watched it, and it was pretty cool. It was interesting. It was a little bit, reminded me of early 2000s, late 90s, like a Tool, those industrial videos. We said, okay, we made 3 copies of the script and went home and read it and came back next day and thought, this is something really cool. There's something to it.
And they go, we want to make this movie. We don't have a lot of money to make it, but you guys can come and play with us on it. You can direct it, James, and Lee, you can act in it. Let's go and make this film.
As soon as we said yes to them, we were shooting within a couple of months. That's how quickly the turnaround was.
Lionsgate got involved pretty early on. I think they got involved during the pre-production stage. My producers, they had approached different studios to see if they'd be interested in this project, and there were a bunch of people that were actually quite excited about it, but Lionsgate were just very gung-ho about it. They really got the film. They were very excited. Peter Block and Jason Constantine were the two guys that I dealt with the most, and they were basically, our partners in making help me elevate my film, in the eyes of the general public, and so it doesn't just feel like a niche sort of horror film, and Saw really was that. The fact that we had Cary Elwes, the amazing Cary Elwes, Danny Glover, Monica Potter, Michael Emerson, and Tobin Bell. It was a really great cast. You know, it was a cast that for, you know, a first-time director for a kid, you know, it was the most amazing thing. You know, I was like, oh my God, I get to work with Danny Glover, and I get to work with Mr. Elwes, Mr. Princess Bride, and so these were actors that I really looked up to over the years, and so, you know, the chance to work with them in my first movie was very.
Shawnee Smith came in. She was sicker than a dog. She could barely stand up, and we're like, she tried to back out of the deal. She didn't want to do it, and we're like, no, we need you for literally 3 hours.
They called me into the office to watch. This was the one scene that they had filmed to get the movie made, and Lee played my part. And so I came in the big conference room, all these guys sitting around the table, and they showed me this film, and I felt like, you know, the belle of the ball, and it's like my Cinderella moment. Okay, I'll do it.
Shawnee, everyone knows James had a big crush on Shawnee for a long time, so he's happy to work with her.
I think the roles in horror movies come to me because they know I'll really like play the hell out of them, because I that stuff trips me out. The fun memories from the traps. Let's see.
The reverse bear trap was the thing that I wanted to work on more than anything. That really had me. And the problems with it was so heavy and so mechanical, and so we had to come up with something else. After we looked at this picture of the original one that they did in Australia that this movie was based on, and seeing that it was too big and everything, Julie, the production designer, came up with these concept drawings of what she thought it should look like, with screws and nails and sharp points and everything.
Because there was no budget, right? So the head contraption, the jaw trap, was like really heavy. And I had to hold it with a tongue depressor in my teeth.
Shawnee had like 102 temperature that day, and she just had this horrible fever. I mean, she barely could stand that day. I mean, I really was concerned. And then we're throwing this big head trap on her, and she's got to scream. I think like any good actor, they just took what they had, which was, I'm sick and I feel like crap, and use it. I mean, especially since she's got to cut somebody open and dig through blood and guts.
There's no halfway with me. I either like just take it all the way or I won't do it. So I was just thrashing around. There's no other way to do that except to, you know, throw your huevos to the wall and like front a punk rock band, you know.
So it wasn't until I saw the movie that I knew a lot of the transitions we were going to do. A lot of the film was trust, and trusting he knew what he wanted and getting it done. I mean, I feel my contribution to the first Saw was really about getting it done.
It was literally trial by fire, making this film. I don't know the guy, and he didn't really know me very well, and we didn't really know each other's sort of methods. It was my first movie, and it was, I think, his first big feature as well, and so we were very fresh to it. But I think just the excitement and the kind of energy that we had, right, just really kind of like barreled into the production. You know, we were just
to shoot everything. Sometimes they would look at him and say, we don't have time to shoot these 2 scenes. Which one do you want to lose? You know, and I remember days James would just hang his head like, I got to figure out which scene to drop here.
So it was a bittersweet movie for me in that, you know, there were a lot of things that I wanted to do to it that I could not do. I didn't know better at the time that that my vision that I had for the movie was a lot bigger than the budget and time that I had to work with. And so it really bummed me out in a lot of ways when I couldn't get the stuff I wanted, and it was a real struggle to even make my days. We were shooting so many pages a day. I cannot remember now how many pages we were trying to rip through.
It was just, it was like a meat grinder, just pushing it through as fast as we could. We had 18 days, which back then on film is not a lot of time.
If I was lucky, I could get maybe 2 or 3 takes. If not, it's just 1 take and I need to move on. And for me at the time, I knew that the movie I wanted to tell, I needed lots of coverage, and so I didn't really get a lot of coverage, and so it was a tough film for me to put together in post-production.
I don't think I've ever worked on a feature-length film that had less physical footage. I mean, they made the film so quickly that often there truly were only 1 takes, you know, a single take of these scenes, which you would think on the one hand, well, that means there's no...
Every day. I mean, without Greg, we wouldn't be sitting here.
The fact that Greg gave us our first big opportunity, our first big break. Greg was also such a great guy, and even up to today, you know, it's hard to talk about the Saw films and the Saw world without Greg's name coming up, because he was so instrumental to the success of the Saw films, and you know, and we all just love him as a human being.
He shepherded the whole thing. He put everyone together. He was the backbone of it getting made, really. He actually helped make my career. He went to the studios for me for Dead Silence when they were like, she's never done a studio picture and we don't know if she can do it. And he helped me put a presentation together and went in with me when like 12 people at a boardroom table. Greg was kind of, you know, just hugging me and being like, you can do it.
If you throw a stick in Los Angeles, you'll hit somebody who has a horror story about a producer. What luck we had to meet somebody who was such a gentleman, such a nice guy, who guided us through. And once again, could have been pointing the finger at us and saying, you guys don't know what you're doing. I do, follow me. He never did that. He let James make the film he wanted to make.
I saw him on a Friday night with Oren and Mark, and he said, we're doing Saw 3 and we're a go. And unfortunately, Greg died 2 days later, which was the biggest loss. He was the kindest, caring guy you'd ever want to meet.
Part of the reason that that Lionsgate and Mark and Oren were very instrumental in making sure that that the Saw sequels kept up their theatrical quality in a lot of ways was to basically pay tribute to Greg, and I'm very fortunate to have known Greg while he was around.
This is 2 weeks before he died. Mark and I, in thanks for him taking care of some business for us, we bought him a new Maserati. And
this is his dream car.
His dream car. And we went with Mike Dunleavy, who was coaching the Clippers at the time, and some other friends, and we went to...
surprised him with
Surprised him. We took his old car, and so gave the valet ticket, and the valet brought this car back. And that's what he's signing the paperwork right there in this picture.
Obviously, as we all know now, Saw went on to create a subgenre in the horror world, and it's a subgenre that you know, that critics have kind of frowned upon in a lot of ways.
I think when I hear the term torture porn, it has a positive effect on me. It makes me think of all these great things that happened in my life. As a term, I think it's just something that the media comes up with for a shorthand. You know, I've worked for magazines before, and you're always looking for shorthand, like what's the most direct way to into somebody's conscious, you know. In the same way a term like grunge or, you know, whatever you're talking about, it's something that you can use to symbolize something and instantly get the message across.
Blank porn is a very popular term now, and it doesn't necessarily have anything to do with pornography. It just has to do with something that you get really into, you know. It's just you
know, right out of film school, and they were just like kids in a candy store. They were really enjoying the journey. And it was a joy to watch them.
You know, James and I, we achieved our dream. Like we had that great moment that unfortunately a lot of people don't get to have, which is where your life's dream comes true. And I remember Mark Berg saying to me, you know, who's still a friend of mine to this day, I remember him saying to me back then, you know, it'll never be this way again. And he was right. Because, you know, I realized that it's probably never going to be that good again. It's a shame that our best experience was our first experience, because it's all downhill from here. And we have had great times making other films, James and I. But I think that Saw is just so special in so many ways, not just because it was our first movie, but because we were surrounded by people who just had so much love.
The first movie now, in hindsight, feels so different to the rest of to where Saw eventually became. The rest of the Saw films actually became really, really fast-paced and have a lot of things happening, whereas the first Saw films actually pretty low-key in a lot of respect. You know, I had a friend that pointed out to me that he felt the first Saw film actually felt very minimalistic in a lot of ways, which was very interesting to hear Saw be described as a sort of